Jesus Christ. All right, so this Mark Lamont Hill. So this was a previous article, right? Let me look at this. This was this. All right, the 7th, and you're basically making the argument. I agree with that Mark Lamont Hill is entitled to free speech. That's the point. Now, from the standpoint of being fired by CNN, what's your overall take on that? You view it as censorship, or are you making the they can hire and fire who they want argument?
Well, they can, but I think that's kind of the smallest part of this issue, because they fired Paris Dennard earlier this year, and none of the same people who are complaining about Mark Lamont Hill complained about that, even though he was smeared as a sexual harasser based on an incident where he just made a lewd gesture to a student that was mocking him. Over in Arizona. So they never cared about that. So again, I would defend Mark Lamont Hill's right to be on CNN, and I do. But it's not too much to request that they defend Paris Dennard's, or Jeffrey Lord, who was fired for no reason, or Rick Sanchez was fired several years ago for an allegedly anti-Semitic comment that was it was mildly critical. He basically said that the Jews are not a minority and they don't deserve any special treatment. I don't think that warrants getting basically fired. And now he's on RT, and if you watch RT, he does a better job on RT than on CNN. So, I mean, I think eventually these people are able to get back on their feet if they are able to keep their life together. I don't think that this will affect Mark Lamont Hill. Eventually, he'll probably get a gig, possibly with a channel like Al Jazeera. But essentially, the only thing accomplished was that CNN could virtue signal to some of its advertisers who don't want to be associated with this type of language. Now, once in a while, they'll put something on CNN that is derogatory towards Jews anyway, or they'll put stuff that's like really far out. Remember when Cuomo said that little girls changing in gym?
It's bigotry if you don't. Seeing dicks.
Yeah. So Mark Lamont Hill, he didn't do what he did on the air. He did it at a conference at the UN. He's perfectly entitled to do that. The fact that CNN fired him for that shows that they are a hollow husk of emptiness, because you have people on CNN acting outrageous when they're talking about the news. People like Chris Cuomo would probably. I mean, everybody has their favorite dumbass on CNN. You guys have Brian Stelter.
Oh, absolutely.
And Chris Cuomo and his stupid thing where he had that vase that he was drinking out of.
That was great.
I think Anderson Cooper was trash this year on New Year's Eve. So that's not necessarily newscasting, but it's on-air behavior. And I think wasn't Don Lemon stoned last year or something? Somebody was stoned.
Yeah,
2017.
He either. I mean, I think he was at least drunk, if not both. But So this year there was I guess the big thing was the Anderson Cooper being drunk on the air. It was kind of like just showing how utterly not used to any sort of like living life. He basically like shrieked like a girl when he took a shot of. I think they're drinking tequila, which was like, give me a break.
Right. So I've made this point to a lot of people who are, I'll call for the purposes of this discussion, they're anti-Semitism, like SJWs. If you keep Mark Lamont Hill on the network, it just looks just as ridiculous as it always does. Eventually, the network will fail anyway. You're not actually combating any sort of bigotry by having him fired, because by being associated with CNN, he looks more ridiculous, and vice versa. So, I actually put together a string of videos on the article on your website, that are just they're indicative of his entire career. And Mark Lamont Hill, it's really stupid that he is now a free speech martyr because he's always been against freedom of speech. In 2015, he said that the Paris terror attacks have nothing to do with Islam, and you're being Islamophobic.
Oh my God!
If you're saying so, or you can't blame refugees, even though one of the people that ended up being involved in the attack was a refugee from Syria. Then he freaked out at Alan Dershowitz in 2014 concerning the Gaza conflict, which was pretty funny, because Alan Dershowitz, I think, sometimes is a bit of a clown himself.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, when he's talking about legal matters, I think he makes a lot of good points. But I think to top it all off was, there were a couple of things. There was the one where he called Steve Harvey the mediocre N-word in 2016 when he went to visit President Trump.
Oh, interesting.
So to call him a freedom of speech figure is ridiculous. The guy is basically, he's been against freedom of speech his entire career, and that's why I capped it off with his hilarious debate with Patrice O'Neal. If you want to play that.
Yeah, let's play that. Let me play this. Let me see. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I won't be able to hear it though. But
what's that? You won't be able to hear it?
Yeah, through Hangouts, I don't think that I can hear it. But
oh, right.
Will be able to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start playing it.
It's our top story tonight. The whole country is.
Is it a clip or it's the whole night? Is there a certain portion of it, or it's basically like a 19-minute video?
You could start it, and you believe me, once it's going, I don't think you'll want to stop.
Okay. So this was I remember the Don Imus controversy.
Buzzing following Don Imus's comments on his radio show about the Rutgers University women's basketball team.
Oh, some rough girls from Rutgers, man. They got tattoos and some hardcore hoes. That's some nappy-headed hoes there.
Imus then apologized for the comments at length on his radio show this morning.
I'm sorry I did that. I'm embarrassed that I did that. I did a bad thing. But I'm a good person.
I remember this. They acted like he murdered a baby live on television. That was like the biggest deal ever. I remember that was crazy.
And then this afternoon, Imus appeared on the Reverend Al Sharpton's radio program to explain himself and made some more comments that some people say could be just as bad as the original one.
It's like the old country song, God may forgive you, but I won't. Jesus may love you, but I don't. So I can't get any place with you people, but I can get someplace with Jesus.
Who is you people, Mr.
You and this woman I'm talking to.
And just a short time ago, CBS Radio announced that Imus has in fact been suspended from his radio show for 2 weeks. Also, NBC News suspended their television simulcast of Imus's program. President of NBC, Steve Kappas, released the following statement. Quote, beginning Monday, April 16th, MSNBC will suspend simulcasting the syndicated Imus in the Morning radio program for 2 weeks. Now, this comes after careful consideration in the days since his racist, abhorrent comments were made. Don Imus has expressed profound regret and embarrassment and has made a commitment to listen to all of those who have raised legitimate expressions of outrage. In addition, his dedication, in his words, to change the discourse on his program moving forward has confirmed for us that this action is appropriate. Our future relationship with Imus is contingent on his ability to live up to his word. Joining us now with more on this developing story is Dr. Mark Lamont Hill of Temple University, radio talk show host, nationally syndicated Armstrong Williams, and right here in our New York studio, comedian, radio personality Patrice O'Neal. All right.
What's up?
How you doing? Welcome back. Good to see you. Did the CBS and NBC do the right thing?
No. What are they accomplishing after 2 weeks? And what are they accomplishing? What are y'all trying
Go
to
after
accomplish?
him.
I don't understand where this is going.
And so, no, seriously, you don't find anything wrong with those comments?
It's something wrong with the comments, but you act like Don Imus and Kramer are like malignant spots, but the whole country.
You say you. I didn't even give you my opinion yet.
White people. I know what your opinion
White
is, Sean.
people.
Yes, and that whole thing you
The
read
subtitles of this video are hilarious.
was all like abhorrent.
That's what NBC said.
Nobody black is saying that.
That's because they were. That's because those comments were abhorrent, and the reason why we have to defend these young women is because no one else will. The reason why we have to punish Don Imus is because if we don't stand up and speak out, no one else will. And comments like this will continue to be mainstream in public space.
Well, what if this was your daughter who worked so hard, reached the championship, and some dopey radio host says something like that? You wouldn't like it.
First of all, have you had any of those girls on?
We'll invite them on.
What do you think?
I have they've commented to NBC in New York, and they're furious.
Of course, that ain't the real.
Those are their words.
What do you think they really said when they heard that? They didn't go, "Oh, that's outrageous." They went, "I know he didn't call me no nappy-headed hoe." That's what they said. I know that cracker didn't say nappy-headed hoe. That's what they said. They wasn't outraged.
Yeah, but we can't base our indignation on those 8 young women. It's quite possible, because of the way black women are treated in America, that they were used to hearing such things. But it's still inappropriate. We cannot allow our own dignity to be assaulted in that way without a response. And my response doesn't hinge upon those 8 young women who were disrespected. Even if they weren't insulted, I am.
Dr. Hill, let me answer this. All right, so he admits it was wrong, outrageous. These are his words, not mine. Over the top. He has
so can you pause
apologized.
here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so notice, I mean, that's where I started to see that he really was like a white knight piece of shit, because he's offended on the behalf of a bunch of strangers he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So basically, he's saying, well, what if it was your daughter? I mean, basically it's the confluence of Hannity, who's kind of a right-wing SJW in many ways, and Mark Lamont Hill, who's like the polar opposite, and they finally find a common ground where they can tell somebody to shut up and stop being funny.
It's just so interesting that was this like the first what do they call it, patient zero? Was Don Imus patient zero with this shit? Maybe there was one before. But
I mean, Stern had to deal with crap like this.
That's true. I guess, did Stern ever get suspended? I guess he got suspended a few times, now that I think of it. But Stern wasn't finished, though. This seemed to like really put a dent in Imus's career, if I'm remembering correctly. This was a while ago, I guess 2007. Man. All right, should I keep playing?
Yeah.
He's promised to make good. He's now been suspended. Should he be? Are you saying you want him fired?
Absolutely. I think I'm happy that CBS has stood up. I'm happy that the network NBC has stood up and said, look, this is punishable, and they're giving him 2 weeks. But 2 weeks is insufficient. We cannot allow this type of thing to happen. Giving him 2 weeks only enables someone else to do the same thing. All the attention he's garnered, all the promotion he's going to get, all the free publicity. They say no publicity is bad publicity. He's going to have a job. At the end of the day, he should not.
There's no way that and then we'll get back to you, Patrice. Armstrong?
Well, listen. What he said was disgusting. It was a horror. It was terrible. It's very offensive. But the sad news is that this is what Don Imus does. He said things about Venus and Serena Williams. He said things about Gwen Ifill. He said things about others.
Should
he
he be
talked about
fired?
his bosses. He's talked about Jews. He talks about everybody. This is what he does.
Armstrong, it's Alan. Welcome back to our show. Do you think it's appropriate?
May I finish? I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. May I finish?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. He talked about all these people. They have allowed this to go on. I don't believe in censorship. I believe in the ultimate freedom of speech. I think the marketplace should decide. Certainly, CBS Radio and everyone else has a right to suspend him, to send a message that after many warnings, they will not tolerate this any longer. But firing him, and then the other thing we're doing, we're setting another precedent. Don Imus is not the only shock jock who use this kind of terminology and these racist remarks. There are other people that use it. You set a dangerous precedent when you say that someone like Don Imus should be fired, because there are a lot of people out there who happen not to look like Don Imus. It's easy to fire people like Don Imus and Savage and others, but we got to hold everybody to the same standard. We must establish what is the standard.
Let's fire anyone who makes racist remarks in public. Let's fire all of them.
Hold on, Armstrong.
Let's fire all of them then. I have no problem with
it. And then what?
Are you offended?
I'm not at that, because first of all, nobody except me and the good doctors of 60, and none of you know what funny is. Like the doctor.
Was that fun? Was it funny? What I
to say
funny to me?
Nappy-headed hoe
was it funny?
Is hilarious. But in context of context of a comic, you should be able to explore any words you want to say. He messed up.
Would it be different if a black person said it?
Of course. I can say nappy-headed hoe all day. But
right.
I want to be able to call white girls straight-headed hoes anytime I feel like it. Anytime.
And would you?
Of course.
And should you be punished for it?
Of course not.
All right. So, Dr. Hill, are we overreacting here? I mean, look, what he said was inappropriate, was wrong, he's apologized. At what point do we say, okay, how about a little forgiveness? He's, been contrite. He went on Reverend Sharpton's show today. He
I
realizes
didn't find
he
him
did wrong.
contrite on Reverend
Do we
Sharpton's
keep punishing the guy?
He's crying.
Well, first let me say I didn't find him contrite on Reverend Sharpton's show. I found him arrogant. I found him somewhat belligerent.
What do you want? You want blood?
And his "you people" comment to me really underscored the fact that he's not all that apologetic, and that deep beneath him is a severe character flaw that's directly connected to racism.
Character flaw.
Doctor, do you think...
Absolutely. And if your character flaws were uttered in such a way that they cause severe abuse to people in full public
Can you
view
pause
on
here?
a daily basis,
Yeah, sure.
So realize, like, if you look back 11 years ago, or I guess it would be 12 years ago now, all the treatment that Lamont Hill received last month, he was giving to
Don Imus.
Yeah, because really the issue that people got him fired, which I think was not a fireable offense, was using the phrase "from the river to the sea," which he said, well, when I say it, it means something completely different from when other people say it.
Right.
Which in actual context, it means liberating Palestine from the river to the sea means destroying Israel. But back then he's like, well, I mean, how can you say "you people"? I know what "you people" means.
It's just like rules for thee, not for me. And it's interesting. Like it's somewhat enjoyable watching Lamont Hill get eaten up by basically his own. This is the bed that he made for himself. That's,
right, and
satisfying.
people are pointing out that Patrice died in I think it was like 2011. So
yeah,
I think it's clips like this that made him like an absolute friggin' legend.
Oh, he was definitely an all-timer, definitely.
Basis, which some may argue.
Do you know that anybody was really
abused
abused here? Was anybody really abused here?
Absolutely. I think that's what we need to look at black women in their particular position in America. When they're referred to as hoes, when they're referred to as the B word on a constant basis, we need to challenge that. Not just when it comes from Don Imus, when it comes from anyone.
Now, you know what, dude? But listen, if we start challenging that word, right, and we start to try to ban the word nigger and ban the word nappy-headed hoes, right, let me ask you, how? Who's going to suffer in the long run? It ain't going to be white people. You don't say nappy-headed hoe on a regular basis in the street. I might. I say hoe, maybe not nappy. That's something new, something new for me.
And hoe is not racial.
But with everything going on in the world, why are we fighting so vigorously to defend the right to call ourselves the N-word or hoes?
We got a lot of ground to cover,
issue.
Not the least of which is their double standard. We're going to delve into that when we get back. We'll pick up this.
Why isn't it the same kind of outrage, let me ask?
Is this... Oh, okay.
In the black community, when rappers and other people in the black community, athletes in the black community, defame and demean black women.
I am one of them that is
names than I ever did.
Another clip there of Don Imus from his appearance on Al Sharpton's radio show today. We now continue with Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. Armstrong Williams works with my friends over there at WWRL in New York, and Patrice O'Neal. Armstrong, he apologized. He's contrite. Did he say the right things, or was the apology, in your view, worse than what he initially said, as was suggested earlier here tonight?
Well, the guy's in a state of shock. He did not expect this. He's done this for so long. And another thing about Don Imus, I can never forget during the time of Hurricane Katrina that he was one of the few people who had a national audience in this country who spoke out and said, what is wrong with America? Why are they singling out these people for this kind of treatment and this kind of neglect? He said, there's only one conclusion that I can come to, is the fact that they have black faces, and this is not right. This is not who America is. And I got to tell you, I can't forget that. You can be outraged with him, and you should be outraged with him, but you got to take the man's life in balance. He's one of the few people who brought attention to the plight of those people in New Orleans, and they happen to be black. I mean, so it's easy to make someone out to be a racist. What he said was very racist, was very bigoted. But I look at the whole Don Imus, and he's done some good. We should be outraged. NBC and CBS did what they had to do.
Dr. Hill, shouldn't we look at what's in somebody's heart and what their true intent is, and truly what they've done? He's got a camp. He helps kids. 10% of the kids at his camp are black. I mean, you want to end the man's career over this comment?
I don't want to end his career. I don't want him on the street. I simply don't want him to have this particular job. I'm sure he'll land on his feet.
What job can he have?
That's not my concern. What I'm saying is that this particular post that he has, let me finish this point. He used his job irresponsibly, and he should be fired for it. Well, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he should never work again. If someone wants to hire him, that's their prerogative.
Then you'll pick it the next guy that he works for, the next person he works for. Patrice, I mean,
I'm just saying, I know funny, and I know if he had said nappy-headed athletes
Would that been
nappy-headed
okay?
young women.
Why is that okay?
Why is no? It's not okay. If he had said
We'd
that,
be just as offended.
nappy-headed athlete would have been. Is he using an adjective? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But to say nappy-headed hoe is so ridiculous. You know he was trying to be funny.
Well,
you know it.
I mean, you heard
But
the tone of
even
voice. He
Imus
was
himself
laughing.
says it
I mean,
wasn't
he
funny.
didn't intend to hurt, and he realizes he was wrong, Armstrong. He knows he made a mistake. And as you said earlier, the free marketplace can decide whether or not this helps him or hurts him. Just pulling him off the air, stop other people from ever going over the line, which anybody in broadcast can do any moment of any day when you're in front of a live mic all the time.
But the problem is, people cross the line every day. Anybody else other than people who have huge audiences and names could have said this, and they could have been of a different hue, and nothing would have been said. It would have not even made the radar screen. It's because of what Don Imus represents, and he just happens to be a white man in America, and they're the individuals in this country that cannot use racism in any form, in any kind of way. It's a double standard. Look,
hang on a second.
I don't want you to misinterpret my trying to defend him, but there is a double standard here.
Dr. Hill, I want to ask you this question. You want him fired from this job.
Absolutely.
All right. We know the history. The two people that are leading the effort now against Don Imus are the Reverend Jackson and the Reverend Al Sharpton. Now, we know in the case of the Reverend Jackson, we know his comments about Jews in New York. We know his admission about the treatment of food of certain customers when he used to, work at a restaurant. We know the white interloper comments of Al Sharpton. We know Al Sharpton said if the Jews want to get it on, tell them to pin their yarmulkes back and come on over to my house. Have you ever asked for their firing?
Firing from what? In 1988, when Reverend Jackson made the comment about Hannity, he paid dearly for it. He also apologized.
I didn't ask you that. I asked, sir. Wait, Dr. Hill.
You're saying fired. Fired from what?
Do you think they deserve to be on the national scene leading the effort against Don Imus, considering their background?
Okay, that's a different question. Absolutely. Absolutely.
They do.
This particular, I think
Doctor,
anyone
do you see what he's trying to do? That's what they do. He's trying to make us hypocrites. That's what I'm saying.
It's not about hypocrisy. It's about challenging someone who clearly spoke out in racist and sexist fashion. The issue here isn't Reverend Jackson, nor is it Reverend Sharpton. The person who should be under scrutiny here is Don Imus.
No. The people leading the effort. No. Here's the difference. If you're saying he should be fired, why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't they, in your mind, be in the same category? If you can explain that to our audience, I'm all ears.
The same category is what they have both paid dearly for comments that they've made that they've regretted when
they're still out there protesting, and they're still in the media. Nothing happened to them. There's been no impact negatively on their careers.
That's absolutely the same.
What do you want? You want to go ahead?
Because I see what you're doing.
What am I doing?
Because the seriousness of the doctor is what the down. He's so. It's the fact is
You're saying the doctor's a hypocrite?
No, not a hypocrite. But what I'm saying is,
you're over here celebrating, calling people hoes, and thinking it's funny. To me, that's
man, stop it.
That's the issue.
Stop it. You're being too serious. First of all, when was nappy-headed hoe? Wait a minute. When was nappy-headed hoe ever a term that was subjugating to black folks?
No.
Nappy-headed hoe. When? Back in the 20s? During slavery?
Look, it is offensive, and Imus says himself it's offensive. Here's my question. Hang on a second, Doc. Patrice, in all seriousness here, if this is how Imus is going to be treated, what about the people leading the charge? Is it fair? You say, well, you're trying to create this. Is there hypocrisy?
Divide and conquer. No. That's why
I'm not dividing and conquer. I'm saying
to prevent it from being that, let him say what he wants so I can say what I want.
You want everybody to say everything. You don't care.
Yes.
All right, but you're being, real and honest. But I'm saying, are they being hypocritical?
And sexist.
Are they being hypocritical? Hang on a second.
There's nothing hypocritical
I'm asking Patrice.
Look, man, if you tell somebody how to say something, and you have made mistakes in your life, I can't use hypocrite. I gotta go back to the black community, Sean.
We're gonna pick it up right there. Don't go.
We continue now with Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, Armstrong Williams, and Patrice O'Neal. All right, Dr. Hill, I want to go back to this issue we were discussing earlier. The two people leading the charge, the Reverend Jackson and the Reverend Al Sharpton, and they both have a history of saying outrageous things. I
don't know if I'd say outrageous. I don't.
You don't think Jaime Town's outrageous?
I think it's an unfortunate statement. You explain the context.
What a piece of shit! Yo, he is a fucking piece of shit, man. Oh my God. I don't know, Bolt, if you're on a delay or whatever.
I'm on a delay. What did you just say?
It was just basically when Hannity's trying to nail Mark Lamont Hill on the Hymetown comments, and he's like, "That was an unfortunate statement. No, that wasn't a big deal." Oh my God, give me a break. You know, if it was this is basically the black version of Hymetown. It's the thing. Someone said something offensive, but he wants blood when it comes to Imus. But when it comes to Jackson and Sharpton, he doesn't care. Unbelievable.
Well, if you look at Sharpton's career, what he did, he said like retarded shit about Italians and Jews and
didn't he
the guy's on MSNBC today?
Didn't he help bring forth fake rape allegations? What is her name? Brawley, right?
Tawana Brawley.
Yeah.
So he smeared he alleged that a prosecuting attorney, I think, raped Tawana Brawley.
Oh my God.
Then they sued him. They sued him and two of his greasy attorneys, and he lost. So he was supposed to pay damages, and he still hasn't paid to this day.
Oh Jesus, unbelievable! All right, there's like 4 minutes left. I'll hit play.
Problematic statement. I'm not trying to support the statement. I'm saying he's apologized.
You don't
19
think
years
the
ago.
term white interloper, sir, leading into that incendiary event that took place on Freddy's at 125th, you don't think white interlopers offensive and racist?
It's interesting that you're saying that these people didn't pay a penalty, yet 19 years later we're still talking about the comments. Clearly they are paying a public penalty. That's the same thing I want to see happen.
I'm just trying to understand. You want this guy fired, but it's acceptable for the people that have this history to lead this effort against this guy. And I'll tell you what I find it.
All right, can you pause it there?
Yeah.
So what he's referring to, there was Freddy's was a store in, I think it was in Manhattan, where a Jewish shop owner had evicted. So there's what's it called? There's renters and then there's sub renters, right? So there was a store called Freddy's Fashion Mart that was renting space in a building that was owned by a black church, and they were subletting some space to some record store, and they evicted the guy because I don't know, some sort of payment dispute or something. So Sharpton had this demonstration there for like a month, and he basically whipped up he attacked the guy as a white interloper, and then I think after one of his demonstrations, one of his supporters broke into it, held all the people there hostage, and then poured gasoline
holy shit
all over the place, lit it on fire, and I think 7 people died.
Oh my God. Yeah,
that's what Mark Lamont Hill is like. Yeah, it's been 10, 15 years. Let it go already.
Wow. It's what they did with the Women's March leader. She's no longer with them, but that killed civilians in Israel. I guess apparently there's a statute of limitation on murder. Oh my God, unbelievable. And then there was another one that tortured and killed a gay guy.
Yeah, Donna Hilton. Yeah, they falsely imprisoned him, tortured, killed. I don't even know, to be honest with you, I researched it. It's possible he wasn't even gay. They were just calling him a,
Oh, okay. I got you. They were just saying he was gay. I got you. Okay. All right, I'm going to press play.
I was talking in the break. Either everybody's wrong and everybody gets condemned. You'll only condemn Don Imus. Will you condemn the Reverend Sharpton and the Reverend Jackson for their incendiary remarks over the years?
Absolutely. Anyone who makes a hurtful or incendiary comment.
No, I said specifically Reverend Jackson and Al Sharpton. Will you condemn them tonight as you have Don Imus?
I'm saying anyone and everyone. Yes, I think making.
You're having a hard time with this. You really? I think
actually no.
Too distinguished.
I think you're having a hard time keeping the focus on Don Imus.
I think
you're making these scapegoats.
The difference is I'm consistent.
Diversionary tactics.
I'm saying it's wrong for everybody.
Sharpton instead of Don Imus.
No, I'm not, because it's wrong for everybody.
It has no bearing on what Don. It has no bearing on what Don Imus did.
No, I'm saying it's wrong, but I'm also saying I think it's hypocritical. The guys that are leading the way have a history of making equally offensive remarks, but they seem to be getting a pass. And now, in an ironic sense,
if Jesse Jackson got a pass, we wouldn't be talking about it 19 years later.
Oh, but you're having a hard time saying that it's appropriate for this guy to be leading the effort. You don't find any irony there or any hypocrisy there?
Well, you're going to be using OJ for the next 50 years to talk about, to compare it to any other white guy who does something.
You said something in the break, though, and I think you're right. Either everybody's wrong or everybody gets to say what they want.
Everybody says what, because the word nigga does not mean what it did in 1920, no matter what you say and when you say it.
But you and I had this debate once before. That word is meant to hurt. Period.
And it could hurt. Yeah. You just say it.
So is calling someone a fucking whore. If you are, you might be ahead or behind Bold, but it was basically, it's basically when Patrice is talking about nigger, and the Hannity countered and said, well, that word is specifically said to hurt, and my argument is, so is calling someone a fucking whore. So that can't be the standard. That can't be the standard. The standard should be, if you call people niggers, you should deal with the consequences. But the consequences should not be censorship. The consequences should be, like, whoever it is you decided to call that, they get to say whatever they want to say. And they might say something that owns you, and you might get embarrassed, or you might not. But this idea that, well, we need to take people off of their payment platforms, and we must restrict their ability to use credit cards, because of the history of that word, and I don't deny the history of the word, it's a horrible history, but there will be a next word that they use that's less severe with the same consequences. It's the same thing with the pushing Andrew Anglin off of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, before that, there was, 200 years before that, if you called somebody a witch, they'd get basically tortured and put through the ringer and dunked into a frozen lake. So, I mean,
you can't even lament the death of a police officer by an illegal immigrant on Facebook. That's considered hate speech. So,
yeah, was that today or something?
Yeah, that was. What is today? It happened. Might have happened Monday or Sunday, but yeah, I talked about it today. Just absolutely insane. All right, I'll finish this out here.
It doesn't hurt me. That implies that you're better than me.
What are you pointing at me for?
Because if I call you a cracker, it never meant nothing to you. It was almost like, thank you.
I have known you for a lot of years, for a short time now. We've debated it, but we've known each other. You can basically say anything to me, and I know everything you're saying is meant in humor.
Not everything, but I know how to.
To me,
by the way, that's not true when I talk to him. But let me ask you that.
but you don't get to be the arbiter of what's funny. Well, how can you all be the arbiter of what's funny for black women?
No, I am.
But here's the main question. Let me get Armstrong
based on what you said tonight, bro, I don't find you the arbiter either.
Armstrong.
Yeah, but you're being an arbiter just for painting you into a corner. You don't even realize that your whole seriousness is messing you up. Now you got to commit to saying that Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are
television,
you had to commit
cheesing and soft shoe and talking about how this isn't a serious.
This is where the problem is.
This is a serious issue.
Now this is what they do.
Who's they?
They make us fight.
Who's they?
Who does?
When he goes soft shoe, that's more insulting to me than nappy-headed hoe. That's when black people call each other words like that, soft shoe, house nigga. Get out of here. You know better than that, Doc.
Sir, the issue here for me tonight is Don Imus's comments, and all we've done is divert the
I think the issue, Dr. Hill, is who decides what's offensive. What's offensive? And who's it offensive to? And who's getting hurt? And who's the arbiter of what offensive is?
Why don't we talk to the aggrieved people? No one asked that question when.
And if they're not offended, you want to give Don Imus his job back? They're not offended.
When Mel Gibson made his comments, clearly Jewish people were offended, and they should have been.
I didn't hear you call to say that they should step aside.
When Bill Maher lost his job with ABC,
we got to run, guys.
Because people were offended. Why can't black women be just as compelling a victim?
Thank you, Patrice. Good to see you. Thanks.
Man, it seems like the great minds die early. Patrice was just exceptional. Man.
Well, and I mean, he was like a prophet there, and
yeah,
it's amazing. He was warning Mark Lamont Hill not to be a censorship promoting asshole back in 2007, and it's interesting that Mark Lamont Hill went back to the Mel Gibson example from Passion of the Christ. I remember when that movie came out. I think I was in probably 10th grade or something.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Jewish community, a lot of people are, oh my God, they're saying that it's about like how we killed the Lord and stuff like that. I'm like, look, the more noise you make about it, do you think people are not going to watch a film? It was a pretty gruesome film.
They're going to be like, oh, let's go see that.
I saw some of the movie. I don't think I saw the whole thing, but it's a movie, and Mel Gibson, even though in retrospect, I think he did have some derogatory views. So, he made a movie. The movie was pretty well made. It said some negative things about Jews, and the world moved on.
Right, right. They still haven't realized the Streisand effect. Anytime I hear anything, the Jews or black people are very unhappy with this thing, I'm like, well, let's see it. Let's have a look. Let's make sure we watch it.
You don't have to be happy with what people say about you, but you can't control what they're saying, and it's like Mel Gibson, over his entire career, he made if you go through his career, like look through Lethal Weapon. I'm sure he said a number of things in that movie that could be construed as insensitive, and the same people who complained during Passion of the Christ doesn't they didn't complain about that at the time. So it's just hilarious. So people just are selectively offended instead of being selectively offended. Put forward a rebuttal if you want it, but there's no reason to be afraid when people produce a movie that might be derogatory towards one side or another. You can produce an alternative movie, but you can't control it.
Man, that was a while ago, 2007. We're in such a bad spot right now. Jeez, it's not good. Not good. All right, so anything you want to close with, or websites you want to plug or anything?
Well, you can find my channel, Bold Like a Leopard, on YouTube, also on BitChute. A lot of places. I'm at Chef Leopard on Twitter, at Starscream85 on Gab. I don't know if you're going to put the articles out there.
Yeah, I'll tweet them out at the end of the stream.
If people, there's people on the stream that obviously disagree with me. They can ask for a debate if they want on some of these topics. Some of them I think I recognize from Jamarl's channel, Jamarl Thomas.
Sure. I think the key thing here is that, and I guess because I'm just surrounded with it on Twitter, but just the idea that people are advocating for each other's civil liberties while vehemently disagreeing. That's huge. That's a huge thing. It's refreshing, and we just, as a society, we just lost track of that, and we might not get it back. I hope we get it back, but yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who they go to your channel. They want to say things that they couldn't say other places.
Right.
Some of them, look at what happened with Pittsburgh. Okay, so that guy was on Gab, and he was going around, and eventually he did go through with his threats, but ultimately I think the majority of users who say offensive things online, it actually relieves some of their stress, and they don't end up doing things that would be coercive or even violent to other people. So I think it's good to have a venue like yours, ultimately, even if they say things that are not necessarily in good taste.
Sure.
And I think that ultimately, people can go to my article. They can make a judgment whether I'm correct, whether I'm incorrect. They can put forward their additions. I'll close with this, okay? Because I know I've held your time for a while, but
sure.
There was a recent issue with a woman who was exposed on Canary Mission. Now, Canary Mission is a website that it seeks to expose anti-Semites online who make active threats. And this student was her name was Lara Collab, and now she's a practicing doctor. So essentially, I'll send you this article.
Okay.
And you could probably break it down at a different time. I know it's a little late for you, but essentially she made a threat 7 years ago on Twitter that once she becomes a doctor, she's going to give Jews the wrong meds and they're going to die. Now, that's not a good thing, and it is a threat if you really think about it.
Sure.
But it was unearthed on Canary Mission this week, and people believe that she is a resident a former first-year resident at the Cleveland Clinic, and they believed that she could be actively poisoning people. But as it turns out, she'd already finished her residency a few months ago, and people were basically whipped up into hysteria that they could be poisoning. She could be poisoning patients or whatever. So people should just read the news as carefully as possible. I think your channel does that a lot.
Thank you.
Which is good. I wish there were Tim Pool's channel does that. So, you do have to watch out for people that do things that are dangerous, like the Pittsburgh guy.
Sure.
Or, obviously there was Dylan Roof or something.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't give into this, this Chicken Little behavior that you saw from, for example, that woman, the teachers union president.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Bald. I appreciate that. And we'll do it again sometime soon. Keep me updated on your articles. And like I said, I'll tweet these out when the stream ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. So I'm going to read the super chats, and then we will be done. And yeah, why is it always like the Patrice O'Neals and the Christopher Hitchens? I put them in the same category. They were polar opposites almost, but I think they probably would have agreed on a lot. And they die early. It's weird. I mean, you look at the other people that could have been like that, they just don't stand up for anything. Howard Stern, Andrew Dice Clay, they sold out. They completely sold out. A lot of the people that made money off of the First Amendment in the 90s, they've completely sold out and gone in the other direction because they don't want to take the shrapnel anymore. And I guess maybe eventually they get tired of it. I don't know. Andrew W. on the stream me says, why does the U.S. give money to pretty much every country in the world? Seems like a waste of money. Yeah, weren't they complaining about $5 billion for the wall, and then the United States gave like almost 4 to South America? Or was it 6? It was some insane number like that. That's crazy. Let's see. Streamlabs, Eric G. This was during the. This was right when I went on intermission. Said, so according to these dipshits, there's only 2 sides, left wing and fascists. Right. So that was the video of Michael Brooks, and they